Welcome to tape 2 of Healing Through Relationships. And I'd like to focus again on what those psychic megaphone messages do. We did an exercise where we sent someone out of the room with the instructions to come in, and they were going to be greeted at their high school reunion. And there was a greeting, and they went out of the room, came back, and this time I just changed one instruction, and that was that you were going to be tickled because that was the favorite thing they liked to do to you when you were a kid back in high school. And we saw a whole myriad of effects of something that was totally nonverbal, and obviously not something that had a whole lot of emotion behind it, just an expectation that was there, just something vibrating in brain cells. And we had feedback from a dozen or so people who felt some very definite effects, where they stood back, where they kind of stayed away. It was noticed that many people didn't gather around in the way they had the first time. And so when you see the subtle effects of those energies, you might start to wonder how the effects of some of those early memories might be in your relationships. What kind of inclinations might be created in the people around you by the psychic megaphone messages that you send out based on those 3 early memories, especially if there's a really definitive pattern. And so what I'd like to do is do still another exercise that kind of demonstrates that same dynamic, and we're going to need 2 volunteers, 1 male and 1 female. Do we have 2 volunteers? What do you think? So we've got Jim and Lynette, and what I'd like you to do, Jim and Lynette, is pick out 1 male and 1 female each, 1 to represent your father and 1 to represent your mother. And then if you would, take them over the corner and kind of explain to them what your parents were like in regard to relationships and you. Yeah, what they were like. So what we're going to do is they're going to role play your parents in the exercise that we're going to do. Okay. So how about picking out 2 people who could represent your parents, and would you do the same, Lynette? Okay. And take them off in the other corner of the room. And just take, 30 seconds to just kind of explain to them, Kim, that was you, just kind of explain to them how your parents were as you dated. She's just like your mother. Great, you got her. Go get it. There you go, Ken. So just briefly explain to them and what we're going to do is we're going to get them to come in and go through the scenario of them meeting. And what will happen is, in their ear, Mom and Dad on each side will be whispering all the messages they had for them. And let's just see what kind of dynamic that creates in a relationship. Of course, we don't have Mom and Dad when we're going into a relationship whispering in our ear, but we do have those energies within us that resonate from the inside. And so let's see what kind of scenario develops as all those messages are going on. And then remember that we're talking here about the effect of biases still. Now probably if you think about yourself in a scenario of entering a new relationship, you never heard these messages in your head directly, and perhaps you did hear some of them, but they're all things that are resonating in there in every one of us. So as we go through this exercise, I'd like you to think about the messages that you got from your parents about relationships. And then, if those things were vibrating in your mind as biases, what kinds of effect would they have in your relationships on your capacity to reason? What kind of effects would they have on your perceptual reality? What kind of effects would they have on how you create your relationships? And I think it'll give us a good way to observe how perhaps some of the patterns have developed and how those patterns tend to run us. So let's imagine, Jim and Lynette, that you're young and ready to go for life, and you've just met each other and there's an attraction between you. And in that attraction, you're going to kind of work at just kind of doing the meeting scenario and the first date scenario. Okay? So you're going to ask her, or she's going to ask you for that first date. And Mom, we'd like you at the relevant moments to give him the messages that you would have given to him if you were actually standing there. And Mom and Dad, we'd like you to do the same, is offer that to Lynette. And if you would, make those messages loud enough so our microphone will pick them up, and we'll just kind of get a sense of what all that looks like.
Well, hello there, young lady. Fancy meeting you here.
Oh, hi, how are you?
You like that skating stuff, too?
Yeah, I'm sure she's a good worker.
Yeah. Is he an all right guy? I don't know. He doesn't look real good.
Oh, well, look,
Whatever you want, honey, that's okay, dear.
Oh,
Lynette, you know better than that. You know how to act.
Mom.
You know how to act.
Oh, Daddy, can I go out with him?
Yes, you can go
Oh,
out with me.
she cannot. He doesn't look like a good kind.
Well, make sure that she's a good help for you.
yeah, I'm going to need help, too.
So, where have you been all my life?
Well, I've been trying to find
Lynette, that was
somebody
a
that does
stupid
windows.
question to ask.
Make sure, Jim, that you stick around.
Oh, okay.
Stick
I'm
around.
gonna stick around.
So, what do you like to do, Jim?
Oh, let's
He
see.
probably drinks and gambles and does all those kinds of things.
That's my mom.
I like to drink and gamble.
Gosh, I couldn't take my dad as a minister. I can't take you home if you're drinking and stuff.
Oh, was that right?
Yes, my dad wouldn't let you come in if you found out
What
I
if
was
I offered him a
smoking.
drink?
Oh my God, you go straight to hell.
Oh,
Yeah, you would go to hell if you offered
well,
my
I
dad a
don't
drink.
want to do that. But
Maybe you
does
just
that
better
mean-
date her for a while, Jim, instead of committing yourself.
I think you probably ought to
I
give
can't
this
even
guy
get off
up.
the ground floor.
I haven't gone out with him yet, Mom. Goodness.
He's no good. He's no good.
No, it's okay, daughter. Now, you just do what's in your heart.
Okay, all right.
Would you like to go out with me?
I most
think
certainly
we
would
could
if I
hit
asked my
some
mother.
things.
I have to
Ask your
my
mother.
Yes.
I gotta ask my mother too.
If he has to ask his mother, he's probably not as bad as I thought he was.
Well, what'd your mom say?
She's a good worker, Mom.
Careful. Be careful.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get yourself involved.
She just said that you're fine. and my mama wouldn't lie.
Okay. Do I know your mom? Have I ever seen her before?
No.
Do you know my mom?
No.
I'll introduce you to my daddy, but I'm not going to introduce you to my mom because I don't know what might come out of her mouth.
Jim, if you're not in at a certain hour, just watch out.
You don't want to meet my mother either.
You better be in at 9 o'clock.
Where's your dad?
I don't know.
You don't know where your daddy
See,
is?
I told you.
Oh, Mom, you might be right. Wait, what about your dad? Well, your mom said what? What'd your mom tell you about
Mom
your
won't
dad?
talk to me about my dad.
Oh, I understand.
No.
I understand. Well, Mom talks to me all the time about my dad.
Watch somebody that talks too much about their parents because you just have to be a quiet person and keep these
Don't
things
talk
back.
enough about mine.
So what do you got in mind? What are we going to do this evening? Where we going?
What's the worst thing you figure I can do?
I'd rather not answer that, Jim.
Let's hear it.
There's a lot of
You'll be home
time.
at 9 o'clock.
We can get a hold of
Remember, I still got that strap in the closet.
Okay, now let's go through the engagement process.
Getting who?
Getting engaged. You know what that word means, don't you?
God, no, I don't know what that means. You come on, Mom.
No, she's never involved in that.
Would she just absent herself from her life on the engagement?
Oh, yeah, she has no.
Well,
no
I
problem.
wash my hands of this whole thing, Jim.
No, she did tell me, son, you really know. Yeah, she was there.
Okay.
Well, I'll just do what. Well, look, Mom, this is a letter to you. I'm getting married. Set aside the money I've been sending you from camp so that I can have something when I come back home. Your son.
No love in this letter?
So is this an expectation you'll be back home and the marriage won't last long? Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
Is that-
the expectation is I'm letting my mother know that I'm getting ready to get married, and I'm bringing my spouse home. So when I get home, I'm looking for a minimum of trouble.
Okay.
So that's what I did.
So why don't you pop the question?
Will you marry me?
What? I mean,
Now,
Am I
honey,
supposed to-
Lynette.
keep in mind here, dear, that this is a very important decision and it's something we need to pray over.
okay.
And you need to bring him home, and he needs to ask your daddy for your hand. You're too
We'll
easy
have to
on
go to my
her.
house. How would you like to do that?
You
Would you like
grown?
to go? I'm grown, but some people think I'm not grown.
Well, we ain't dealing with him.
Well, I gotta at least let them know what's going on.
Okay, let's go let him know.
Okay, so come on.
Yeah, all right.
Mom, Daddy, I bought
Jim, it's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you, young man. You look like a fine, upstanding young man of the community here.
Thank you, sir. Good
And
insight,
how
good
much
insight.
money do you make?
Well, with my presses running correctly, I can make about 20 packs of $20 bills.
He's a smart person, just a smart aleck. I don't know if we want him in our life.
Real
No.
job.
I'm in
Now,
service,
dear,
man. Uncle Sam doesn't pay a whole lot, but I do have a future.
He's a soldier. Oh no. You cannot have anything to do with a military man. You know what they're like. They're all
All
cheap.
of my life, I live right here in Annapolis, Maryland, and all of these military people have been around all my life. Why didn't you think I would choose somebody in the military? Mom, come on.
I thought you would know better. You
But
saw all
they-
those
he's got
midshipmen all the time.
You have
Carousing.
nothing to worry about. She's about to marry a soldier of love.
Don't expect to move in with me.
My first intent is to move out.
You know that this is your bed. You made it. You're going to have to lie in it. You cannot come home.
But I think we'll be all right, Mom. I love him.
I know we'll be all right.
No.
I told
no.
you were too soft on her.
Listen, you know we've talked about this before many times, and she's old enough to make her own decisions, and she'll make the right
You
decision.
spoil that girl.
No, Mother, it's the way it is.
Daddy loves me.
I love you too. I'm only looking out for your best interest.
Oh, God, I haven't done that very bad.
So now, think about the effect of all these biases firing off in the mind as interaction happens, and let's move into intimacy now.
Honey.
We're not there, are we?
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Whispering over your shoulder.
whispering over your shoulder.
You know
Well,
that you don't have to stay in this relationship if you don't want to. You can move on.
Mom, do you think he'll be able to take care of me? Do I have
Notice
the right to work?
Mom's megaphone message here,
And he
and
couldn't take care of you.
her husband moved on a long time ago. He got the message and left.
Are we going to stay here or are we going to go away?
Wherever you want to go. Well, the first thing I want to do is get out of Mom's house.
Okay. Where are we
We're
going to
gonna
live?
live there.
We're not living
Hey, I
there.
got a place. We're fine. We're going to be fine. We got a place. I'm working. We're in fine. We're in good shape.
How much do you make?
I don't
How much
intend to
money
ask
you got?
anybody for anything.
Do I have to
period.
go to work?
All right? No, you don't have to go to work. All right?
We get
We ain't asking nobody for nothing. Forget it. That's it.
Mom, did you hear that?
I heard it, but I don't believe it.
He said I can be a housewife, I can stay
You
home.
don't even know how to cook.
I know that. It's true. But I know that. But he says that he'll take me just like I am. No, I don't have to cook. Do I?
Not yet.
You know what a big appetite you have, dear. If she can't cook, you're in trouble.
Did Mom know how to cook?
Grown and gone now,
Mother
Mother.
got
Your mother wasn't the greatest cook in the world. In fact, I remember
See,
her. I
Mom?
remember her
How
burning the
can
water
you,
when she
a
thought
man
it was
of the
first
cloth,
time.
lie like
But now,
that? You know that I was an excellent cook when we got married.
That's right. And-
Your
and-
mother taught me.
and the toast that you made that time, the time that you came over to fix breakfast for us when we were first married, and you came up to fix breakfast for us, and you burnt the toast and burnt the eggs.
See, so it's not important that I don't know how to cook.
You
That
know,
is-
dear, you
see,
know, my wife,
father
that
just
cooking is not
spoils
the
you.
most important part of this
it's
marriage.
okay
It's
with
the
Yes.
it's the
Fine.
relationship.
It's fine. I got no family to go back to. We're fine. We'll start our own.
All right, so we all...
We're off
You sure
and
are?
running. Thank you. All right. Now, noting the effect of biases on all of the capacities of the mind and our inclinations and on each other, how do you suppose this relationship's going to go? Is it any wonder there'll be mass confusion? And as those old files that resonate two people into relationship together start to surface. What kind of mass confusion do you suppose there's going to be when they start to interact? Unless a relationship is consciously created, where do you suppose it goes? What will tend to happen is two people will interact with each other, and one will trigger one of these biases in the other, and an issue comes up for them. Now, of course, when most people have an issue come up for them, what do? They want to make that issue belong to the other person. Let's imagine here, Mary and I are attracted together through our matching bags of garbage, through our resonances. And so I come to the relationship with a bag of garbage on my shoulder, and I'm weighted down with it. And Mary comes to the relationship with a bag of garbage on her shoulder, and she's weighted down with it. Now, what happens when Mary gives me the look? It brings up one of my issues, right? And what do? I make a carbon copy of the issue, and I put it in her bag. Her bag gets heavier. Of course, that brings an issue up for her, and what does she do? She makes a carbon copy and puts it in my bag. And I make another carbon copy and put it in her bag, and she makes and together we go to hell. Carrying our bags of garbage, continuously weighting the other down. The alternative in relationship is, if I can be responsible, if I can go by the measure, if I'm in pain, I'm in error, when Mary gives me the look, I know that she's resonated something in my bag of garbage, and it's my opportunity to heal that. And so I express through responsible communication, gee, giving me the look just now really brought up some fear for me, Mary. Would you help me to heal my fear? So now, instead of an enemy who makes me fearful, I have a support team that helps me to heal my fear when she brings it up. It's only when we open our hearts deeply that we get to look at those unconscious dynamics more and more and more. You know, we've got that adage in our civilization that says, you only hurt the one you love. Well, number one, nobody can hurt anybody. But it's only as you get close enough to start to open that barrier a little bit and trust a little bit that you can access each other's unconscious directly in any way other than a bias and bring those things to the surface. So now I've got an opportunity every time she looks at me. I'm in pain, I'm in error. That's my new standard. So here's some of my pain. Will you help me heal it? And I get to lighten my bag of garbage. And of course that gives Mary an opportunity to heal something in her bag of garbage, so her bag of garbage gets lighter. And so together we unload all of that garbage we've been carrying and move upward into empowerment and into what's called the condition of heaven. If you listen to Jesus, he said it wasn't off in space somewhere, it's here and now. That there is a condition called attunement to total perfect love. And when we're there, it's here and now. We don't have to wait until sometime off in space. But we'll tend to play the game that somebody else is the problem. And when we play that game, we lose the opportunity to attune to what our true nature is. Because all of those messages that we've been given, you know, that child is like a piece of clay, and everything is a thumbprint that comes into it and shapes the piece of clay. How many have been around when a child was newborn? Brand new baby. What would you describe that child as? The experience of that process of birth and a newborn. Precious, miraculous. Would we say the experience of love? Yeah. That's what the newborn child is. Now, a lot of people are going around wanting people to love them. You cannot love anyone. And no one can love you. If we're looking for love in relationship, we're doing, what was the song title the kids had just a few years ago? Looking for love in all the wrong places? Yeah, you can't find it in relationship because nobody can love you. Love is not a verb. Love is a noun. Love is what you are. When you experience life out of your essence, then you experience love. You can't love someone. It's just not a verb. It's not something you do. But what most of us experienced through childhood, yes, we were created that spiritual essence. We had our spiritual faculties opened. We've talked earlier about intuition. And that intuition is one of the spiritual faculties that allows us to be in touch with everything going on around us all the time. Look back at how Christ lived his life. He was in touch with everything going on around him all the time. That's because he lived out of spiritual faculties, out of his created spiritual nature, love. Now, that's not acceptable in today's world. We have an adage in our civilization that says children should be seen and suppressed. Now, we say it a little more nicely. Children should be seen and not heard, but doesn't that really mean they should be suppressed? Why should they be suppressed? Because they simply tell the truth. I mean, Art Linkletter, for 35 years, made a living off of kids telling the truth. It was a very popular television show. Why? Because it was embarrassing and all sorts of things when children told the truth. So what happened when Johnny was born was he functioned out of his spiritual faculties, and that wasn't very acceptable because adults are liars. Adults are so used to lying and being lied to that someone who actually tells the truth, get rid of them. So little Johnny goes out the back door one day, and there's Mrs. Jones talking over the fence to Mom. Mr. Jones comes out and gives his wife a peck on the cheek, and off he goes to work. And little Johnny, who's just really getting his words together, looks, and he can see the energy. He's functioning out of intuition, out of spiritual faculty. He knows exactly what's going on. He says, "Gee, Mrs. Jones, why do you hate your husband so much?" Whack! How dare you? Don't you dare say things like that again. Now, little Johnny was just telling the truth. Remember, half an hour later, he got a lecture on telling the truth, how he was supposed to do that all the time. But he got whacked in the head simply because he knew what was going on. And he learns that it is not safe to be in touch with his spiritual faculties. It's not safe to be in touch with who he really is. And so he takes a step away from those faculties. He takes a step away from living out of his created spiritual essence, and in his mind, he starts to build an image of how he's supposed to be. You know, in the commandments when they said, "I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no strange gods or graven images before me," this is the graven image they were talking about. It wasn't a piece of gold that a calf was made of. That was symbolic of something happening inside of the human consciousness. This was the graven image, this false image that's created in the mind that we live out of. If we hold that image before love in our lives, then we have a false God, very truly and very practically in our lives. So Johnny will learn through experience after experience. As he grows and develops, he'll step further and further away from the experience of love. And of course, what will happen is he will substitute acceptance and approval for love. He thinks, and he gets it wired in his brain, that love is when they approve of me. And so he will do anything for approval, and he learns very quickly what he has to do, and his ego self, his false self, will become the self out of which he lives, and as he experiences how he's supposed to be in order to get approval, he'll come to the point where he'll think whenever he's approved of, he's been loved. Now, many parents who play that game of withdrawing love until you do what I want you to do and then approving of you and calling that love, don't really realize the kind of seeds that they're sowing. Because when that kid grows and goes out and gets into a peer group, he'll do anything to be loved. What's his definition of love? Being approved of. So if he has to rob in order to be approved of, he'll do it because to him, that's love. If he has to kill in order to be approved of, that's what he'll do. So we've got a number of cheap copies of love. And one of them is approval. Oftentimes sex is the definition of love. And so it's, well, let's hop into bed, then we'll know we're loved. But does that generate the experience of love? Oftentimes it's, well, you know, they bring me gifts. When they give me gifts, that's love. All sorts of strange definitions. And so now, one will do anything for gifts and think they're being loved when they receive them. But the experience of love has been left far behind, and this child, as he grows into a young man, realizes that who he really is not acceptable. And he develops this ego self, and there will be people who will try to repair the ego self. There'll be therapies built around self-esteem. There'll be therapies built around love of self and trying to fix the ego. Well, that's like trying to fix a disease. The ego is a disease condition. To function out of a personality, you look at the Greek word persona, and it means mask. If you look at this developmental process, what you'll see is Johnny's developing a mask through which he functions and that he puts on over his real spiritual self, over his created spiritual essence. He puts that mask on over the experience of love. Now he turns into a young man. Here he is, fully developed and fully grown. And one day he's going to meet Mary, who started out with the same experience. She was created love and experienced life out of that, but it wasn't long before she started to learn, as she grew, that who she was as love was not acceptable. And as she grew and developed, she developed this false ego self as well. And this is what I need to do in order to be loved. I remember working with one young lady in Atlanta, and she had the experience of living with an alcoholic father. And she never knew whether he was going to be enraged or, you know, when he was drinking, or humbly offering anything he could offer to her. And she came to the point where she started to realize that what would happen as he went into his drunken rages is that she would be rejected. And in being rejected, once that had happened, she would get cute and coy and do her little thing to get Daddy to accept her again. And that became her definition of love. And she could only carry on relationships with men who would reject her, and then she could play her game of being coy and cute and winning back their approval, and that became her definition of love. Someone who could actually be with her, she couldn't handle that sort of relationship. It had to be someone who would reject her. So she develops this ego self, more and more learns what isn't acceptable in her world, and integrates into her ego condition how she's supposed to be, until she finally grows and develops and becomes a young woman. Now, all of the fear, the first time that Johnny got whacked in the head for telling the truth, there was tremendous confusion, there was anger, there was fear. The next time, and the next time, and the next time, and the next time, added some hate, added some vengeance, added a little terror. And that becomes the bias, that becomes the bag of garbage out of which Johnny's ego structure is formed. That's his self. And Mary developed a similar bag of garbage, her confusion, her anger, her fear, etc. And when the two of them met, there was this resonance, this attraction based upon these bags of garbage, the attraction that the ego calls love. And as they started to relate to each other, when one did what the other expected them to do, they were approved of. So Johnny, in fact, had a relationship with an image in his head. He knew what a woman should be in a relationship, and when Mary matched it, he loved her. When Mary stopped matching his bag of garbage, or what he expected of her, then he dumped his bag of garbage on her. Is this a relationship based on love? Absolutely not. It's a relationship based on matching bags of garbage. Most people have never had a relationship with another human being. They have relationships with images in their heads. And Mary has an image of what this young man should be. And here comes Johnny, who matches. And as long as he functions and does what he's supposed to do, according to the image in her head, she will love him. But if he stops doing what he's supposed to do, what's going to happen? She's going to dump her bag of garbage on him. Now, this dumping of the bags of garbage on each other we'll call a lover's quarrel. Now, a lover's quarrel is one of the ultimate oxymorons. Lovers can't quarrel. You can't put those two words together in the same sentence. It's kind of like trying to put the words military and intelligence together. They don't fit. They can't go in the same sentence. Where love is present, there cannot be quarrel. Where the ego's cheap copies of love are present, there will be nothing but quarrel. And each will violate the other repeatedly. So out of matching bags of garbage, we have nothing but quarrel. And once we start to recognize that that's the level on which we're relating, then we have an opportunity to start to dredge those bags of garbage up and get rid of them. It doesn't have to be any big traumatic process. It can simply be, hey, I'm ready to let it all surface and I'm ready to move through it. But what will happen in the traditional relationship as they go into conflict over these bags of garbage, they'll go and see a therapist or a marriage counselor and they'll be counseled on how, well, you know, people have deficiencies and that's the way it is. They have a problem, but you just accept it. And if you accept it and they do this, then it'll be okay because then you'll get to do that and you'll get even and everything will be all right. And so they decide to patch up their quarrel and then they'll decide it's time to get married. And each of them will take another step away in order, now get the oxymoron of this, in order to be loved, they'll step farther away from their created spiritual essence as they step into their marriage program. And what happens is all of the biases that go along with marriage, when the vows are said, are then activated in each mind. So as they move into a marriage relationship, mom and dad on each side hop into the marriage bed with them. The whole program is activated. Now, if you doubt that, think about a couple that you've known that perhaps lived together for 20 years. And it was a great relationship. And one day they decided to get married, right? And 6 months later, what? They don't ever want to talk to each other again. What happened? Those biases, those unconscious energies were activated in them by the act of marriage, and they went into, now is activated, the parent role and the spouse role. And whatever that insanity looks like, they'll tend to start to play out in the relationship. Well, they'll come to the point where it just gets to be too much of a burden. You know, Johnny tried to be everything that Mary wanted him to be. Any of you guys remember entering into a relationship? You met a woman and it's like there was a real strong attraction, and in your mind you said, gee, I wonder what she wants me to be. And you became it, right? Another step away from your true created essence. You know that who you were back here wasn't acceptable, so you became what she wanted you to be. How many women remember that? You met this fellow, and you said, gee, I'm really attracted to him. I wonder what he wants me to be. And you became it, right? Again, the oxymoron. In order to be loved, you stepped further away from your created spiritual essence. Well, here we are now in a marriage situation. And it gets to the point where Johnny says, you know, I tried for so long to be what you wanted me to be, and I can't be it. Johnny says, I've got to go back and be my real self. Quote unquote. He's going to go back to this old ego image of himself. Mary says, I can't carry this burden of being who you want me to be anymore. I've got to be who I really am. Which, of course, is that false ego self again. And this is a stage in a marriage relationship where they say the honeymoon is over. Okay? And they'll tell us that that kind of romantic, loving space cannot be maintained between two people. And that's true. If we're functioning out of matching bags of garbage, no question about it. If we had two people in relationship that were functioning out of their created spiritual essence, however, it would be a whole different ball game. And there would be the capacity to actually continue in a high energy loving space forever. But what will tend to happen in most relationships, playing out of the matching bags of garbage, is that not wanting to carry the role anymore that they were supposed to play for each other, each of them steps farther away from their true spiritual selves and finds no satisfaction. So what happens next? The relationship now becomes a relationship about things. Whenever there's no satisfaction in the relationship, it will become a materialistic relationship. Well, gee, dear, you know, I think what we need to do is we need to go out and buy a new car. And so you'll see them start to build a framework of things around their marriage. Oh, well, let's get a new house. I know what we need. We need a new baby. When upset or disturbance comes, well, let's go and let's get a new VCR. How about a new TV? Well, let's get another new car. Oh, let's go have another baby. Let's put an addition on the house. And all of a sudden, they're developing this framework around their relationship that becomes so ostentatious and so expensive and so gaudy that they can't support it on one salary anymore. They both have to go to work to support it. And every time there's disturbance, we've even got a bumper sticker, right? When the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. A way to avoid dealing with what's happening in this relationship is, well, let's just go get more things. And when things aren't enough, then it will be, well, let's just drink more alcohol, or let's use more drugs. Now, why did they build this framework around the relationship? It's built around the relationship so that nobody, especially themselves, notices that there's no relationship in there. This is a stage where if either one of them, if someone of the opposite sex were to look at them and honor just 1% of who they really were, they'd be gone from that relationship. Everybody would look at the relationship from the outside and say, but you've got everything. Why would you leave there? Only they know they've got absolutely nothing. Only they know that their spiritual essence, love, is not allowed in that relationship. And this is the ideal situation for healing. This is the ideal circumstance where if each of them can but decide that instead of the relationship being about you making me feel good or us needing things to feel good, let's start to look at all of the bags of garbage that we've accumulated. Let's start to look at, instead of me dumping all this confusion, this anger, this fear, this hate, this vengeance and terror that developed in my early life, my bag of garbage, instead of me dumping it on you, how about letting that stuff surface and let's make the goal of our relationship healing those things. So we become each other's support team in healing. Now we have a whole different dynamic happening in the relationship. And it becomes safe for everything that's less than love to surface, and as everything that's less than love surfaces, gather the support for healing. And when they join with that as the purpose, and they recognize that the goal is how to achieve contact with their created spiritual essence, then their minds will start to serve them up perceptual realities that will guide them to achieving that. Remember that perception is a servant of goals. What's the goal that you hold for your relationship? If the goal is for them to make me happy, for them to, who knows, do whatever it is, be a sex object, make the money, take care of the cooking, whatever it is, what kind of distortions will come into the relationship? But the minute we let go of that and set the goal as, let's make this a relationship that supports our healing process. Let's make it safe enough for anything that's less than love to surface. And as we experience those things that are less than love surfacing, we process through them, we dump it, we unload it. And the bottom line to that healing process is that when love is present in the space, when either one or the other of these can experience and bring their spiritual essence into the space, whatever surfaced in either of them out of their garbage bags is going to heal. Simple exposure to it will heal. So we want love to set the context for relationship. Now, of course, the question becomes, well, what is this thing called love? What does the word mean? Well, unfortunately, we don't have enough words to describe what love is. How do you describe created spiritual essence? There isn't a word for it. Now, the ego's got a cheap copy, and the ego's cheap copy is, when you do what I tell you to do, then I'll know that you love me. That's the farthest thing there is from the definition of love. So we want the context of the relationship to be love. How do you get to the experience? How do you get to know what that is? Most people stand in front of some words and say, tell me in words what that is. Well, let's take a look at what the effect of words is. We've used the example before in the workshop, but for purposes of the tape, let's do the one of how many see a piece of chalk in my hand. Of course, everybody sees a piece of chalk in my hand, or so they think. But the truth is, you don't see a piece of chalk in my hand. The light energy that bounces off of the piece of chalk in my hand hits your eye, and your eye generates an image of a piece of chalk. And that image you overlay on what's in my hand. But what's in your head is not what's in my hand. It is an image that your brain generates of what's in my hand. So let's look at this person who has an image of a piece of chalk in their head, and out here is a piece of chalk. It's really clear and easy to see that this piece of chalk in the head is one generation removed from the piece of chalk in my hand. Right? So here's a piece of chalk. Your brain generates an image that copies it. But it is a copy, right? It's one generation removed. And then you put a word, chalk, on it. Now the image in your head, one generation removed, is not the piece of chalk. And the word chalk is the second generation removed from the actual experience. Do you see the futility of trying to explain something in words? Words are symbols. This in your head, what shows up in your head is the symbol of what's in the outside world, and a word is a symbol of that symbol. Can anybody ever tell you the truth in words? No. If you find somebody that says they're going to give you the truth in words, you better turn tail and run, because it can't be done. The best that you can hope with words is that the tools can be presented with which to get to an experience of the actual experience. You know, I mentioned earlier the idea of we're looking for a personal experience, personally experienced, not for somebody to talk about it, or not to have it programmed into the brain so that the brain can hallucinate it, but to actually get to the experience of it. So we're not going to actually hear anything in words that's true. What we can do is that we can get the tools to get to the creation of the experience. And so rather than try to explain what love is, what I'd like to do is do an exercise, do an experiential kind of thing around the idea of love. And I'd like you at this moment, please, to just kind of check out how you're feeling, mentally, physically, emotionally. Kind of take a look around the room and just kind of get a sense of it all. And then I'm going to ask you to get with a partner. Would everyone get with a partner? Okay, how about going and sitting with your partner? Let's just take a partner and do it. Okay. So everyone's got a partner. Now, let's one person in each partnership say, I'll be light. Okay? The other partner's love. So we've got two partners, light and love. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to each experience being the sender and the receiver in the experiment that we're going to do. We'll tell you after I've given the instructions for both sides which one to go first, okay? And I'd like you to keep eye contact with me until I've given instructions for both sides, so I only have to explain it once. When you're the sender, what I'm going to ask you to do is get quiet and close your eyes. I'm going to ask you to go inside and find the strongest, clearest love energy that you can find. Intensify it. Don't start yet. Keep eye contact with me. Intensify that love energy, and then imagine projecting it from your eyes to your partner. Now, that's the sender's job. When you're the receiver, Shirley, would you help me to demonstrate? Let's imagine that Shirley is the sender and I'm the receiver. So I'm sitting with my eyes open. I'm the receiver, and Shirley closes her eyes. And then when she opens them, I know she's sending. And as she does, I want to check out what, if anything, she's sending. And I want a couple of reference points. One of them is going to be the palm of my hand. The other one's going to be my face. So I'm going to pass my hand between us and just feel with the palm of my hand what, if anything, Shirley's sending. Let's imagine that she's squirting water out from her eyes. I want to check with the palm of my hand what the temperature is. So I'm going to pass my hand back and forth and experience what she's sending, if anything. Then I want to switch my reference point to my face. I'm going to pass my hand between us in exactly the same way. We're sitting face to face, eye to eye, and I pass my hand between us. But this time, just so I have a second reference point, my focus is on my face instead of my hand as I pass my hand between us. And I want to check with my face what the temperature is of the water she's sending. Okay? And then when you're complete with that, just go ahead and reverse. The sender become the receiver become the sender. Are they clear instructions for everyone? Are there any questions? Hada?
When I close my eyes thinking of it, then I open them as I'm sending.
Yeah, you're going to close your eyes, find the strongest, clearest love you can find, intensify it, and then open your eyes and send it to your partner. The intensified energy, open them and send it to your partner.
Whether you're light or love, you're sending love.
Right. Yes. Yeah, when you're the sender, you're sending love. Okay, any other questions? Is that clear for everyone? Okay, so light. Light, would you send first? Okay, and if you're listening on the tape recorder, you can just shut your recorder off now while you do this exercise.
My hand's still, okay.
So how about taking a moment, once again, and just assessing how you feel physically, mentally, emotionally. Check out the room. Take a look around the room. Does it look any different? What do you notice? Say again?
More life.
More life.
More energy.
More energy.
More in tune.
More in tune.
Clearer.
Clearer. The room's clearer.
Brighter.
Brighter.
I feel peaceful. More peace.
More peaceful.
Gentle.
Gentle. Does anybody notice a difference in the energy of the whole group?
Yes.
What would you say it is now relative to 10 minutes ago?
There's a strong bonding here now.
There's a bonding now. Your fatigue is gone. Yeah.
Mellowed out.
Love clears out unconsciousness. Yes. It does. What did you experience? What happened? And if you would, when you're sharing, if you speak loud enough so this microphone can catch you and you'll get on the tape with it. What happened?
It was warm.
You felt heat?
Yes, and a nice gentleness coming through.
Okay, so there was a gentleness and an actual heat. You could feel that in your hand or your face or
More in the hand.
more in the hand. Okay?
Yep. I noticed that as we were talking about it, I could feel a warmth or a heat on my hand, whereas for Hada it was a coolness on her hand.
Okay. So you each felt the temperature change, but it was different for you both. Okay? Anyone else?
I felt heat on my face.
Heat on your face.
That went through kind of like what we did last night with the energy going through.
Okay, so you could feel the heat on your face and then it transferred to an energy through your body.
Yes.
Okay?
I had the same experience, and I wanted to get into the light.
Okay, so you were ready to go for it.
Yes, I wanted to get in there.
So that's our natural condition. That's how we can live all the time. If this is the bias that's always vibrating in our minds. So, if you're ready to go for the light, are you ready to let go of everything that life resonates in you that keeps you out of this being your bias? That's the real question.
Oh, yeah.
Great. You got a few worksheets to do. Huh.
Lots.
Yes?
Margaret and I both discovered that as we shared the love, it increased. The temperature increased.
So you could even feel a temperature increase in the room, you mean?
Between the two of us particularly, but it has increased in the room.
Uh-huh.
We were noticing with each other.
Okay. Did anyone have any aches or pains just before we started this exercise? Jane?
I had a headache.
And what happened to your headache?
It's almost all gone.
Almost all gone.
Almost.
Okay. What did you notice?
My headache is still there.
Your headache is still there. Is there any shift in it?
Shut up with that.
It's probably not as intense, but it's still there.
Okay, so the headache's still there, but it's not as intense. Anyone else?
Yes. I was very surprised to feel a lot of fear, and when I was being fearful, I couldn't, of course, be loving, couldn't send love, and I had to stop being afraid to send the love.
Do you have any idea what brought the fear up for you?
Yes, we've talked about it at length recently. It's too lengthy to...
Okay. So do you recognize that your reality is fear and that's your work to dismantle?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Great. Good. So we join you and support you in that.
Oh, I was just saying there was still something on the contrary. Maybe she just didn't realize it, but she was saying she couldn't feel anything. It wasn't a warmth, but it was like a soft paintbrush that went across my hands as it crossed here. It was just like a nice soft brush that came across.
So you could feel almost a physical stroking on your hand as you did that. Okay. Someone else have an ache or a pain that was going to die? Mary?
Yes, my headache definitely diminished.
Headache definitely diminished.
Definitely diminished.
Aha, great. So the presence of love casts out all sorts of things.
I might mention too that before this, I was still dealing with the scenario that we had gone through because it brought up some garbage, and that happened to have gotten. I feel a lot better now.
Great. So if you couldn't hear Jim, what he was saying was that he had a lot of garbage that came up from that little scenario we did with the parents whispering in the ears, and that he had been dealing with that until now, and that kind of flushed it out and washed it out. What you will find is that anything that surfaces. Now, what the last thing the ego wants when its stuff has surfaced is to be washed out. This ego is inertia bound. We talked last night in the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. We've got 10 to 17 billion neurons with 1 million plus bits of information in them. And that mass is inertia bound. It's going to tend to continue in the direction that it's going at the same rate of speed and will tend to resist change. Not that it can resist change, just that it is such a large mass. And each of us has that mass. Now, to move into the context of love in our relationships is to move into the condition that was called heaven, the presence of love continuously in our lives. You will remember they cautioned us, you can't storm the gates. People, well, I want to be there tomorrow. Now that I know it's possible, I want to be there tomorrow. And being there is a process. It's a process that takes patience. It's a process that takes commitment. It's a process that takes work. You don't dismantle that mass overnight. If you were to take that whole mass and dismantle it overnight, if you were to expose it to love or to God, as God said to Moses, if you saw my face, you would surely die. If all of that were exposed simultaneously, you would be non-functional on this level. I remember for me there was a point where an opening experience happened. And it was like I passed through everything physical. And the multiplier, the number of things going on simultaneously was, I don't care how big a number you can come up with, it wasn't big enough for what was happening in the room. The joy of it, the energy of it, the feeling of it, the knowledge of it. I could ask a question, and any question that I asked was instantly answered, both visually and in a silent voice. I had it explained to me. And in the process, it was like, I became really excited. I knew there was another level to go to. I knew it. This is it. What a great place to live. And what the voice came back to me with was, yes, Michael, you could do that, and the gates opened. However, if your instrument is not yet prepared, that is your body, you'll burn it to a crisp. It's a process. It takes time to integrate that. And you only surface what you're capable of surfacing. If you're at a level 5 vitality, you can't heal anything more than a level 5. When you get to a level 7, then all your level 7 stuff can start to surface and you'll process through it. When you get to a level 9, all your level 9 stuff will surface and you'll process through it. And then you will have integrated love, or God, fully, totally, and completely on a very practical level into your life. But it's a process. It takes time, it takes work, it takes commitment. And the willingness to face and deal with every insanity, every message, every psychic megaphone message. Most people, when they do that 3 early memories exercise, have written about 95% of the upset in their lives in those 3 early offhanded memories. I mean, really grasp. I mean, we didn't do any big, deep, dark, psychological process. We didn't go into intense therapy. All we did was say, pick 3 early memories and write about them. You wrote about most of your life in terms of the trauma of it. Why? It's because the creative power in us follows the directives we give through the mind energy that we give. Our only task is to shift out of our ego's mind energy, its inertia-bound propensity. And its propensity is defense, attack, fight, win, be on top of, manipulate and control, is to replace that with love. That's really all the task is. It's really quite simple. Not always easy, but it's very, very simple if we're willing to do it. And when we start to communicate out of that loving space, communication is a key to creation. We get into that more in the communication, did you hear what I think I said workshop? But communication, your words, you'll notice if you look at the whole creation story, it says, this was created, and God said, and God said, and God said. Words are very intimately connected with creation. It's a way of grounding the mind energy. And once you ground it, it's going to show up in your life. The only difference is, do you take over the power of choice and the power of inclination and keep moving yourself toward love, or does your old inertia-bound ego keep moving toward its storyline? Its storyline is what you wrote about in those 3 early memories. And so what I'm going to ask you to do at this moment is to create a new storyline. Take a look at your 3 early memories. Take a look at how biases have affected your life and your relationships. Take a look at how those messages that came from your parents affected your relationships. And then write a new storyline that starts with, when I'm in conflict. When I'm in conflict. How do you want your life to go? What do you want to create? Now, remember, this is like the storyline that came from the 3 early memories, but you want to contrast that storyline and write a story that has you being the conscious co-creator in harmony in your life. So what kind of things would be involved in when I'm in conflict? You might put ideas like, I automatically forgive, I acknowledge and admit the presence of love to my mind. What other kinds of things might you want to put into your storyline? How do you want the pattern when you write about your storyline to be? I'm conscious of the dynamics and always keep love present in my mind?
That's what's happened to me all my life.
All right. So how about when the garbage surfaces, I gently, lovingly, and easily process through it? Because if it's in there, it is going to manifest in your life. It is going to come about. One of the things you want, one of the things you really want if healing is going to occur, is you want every dynamic that's unlike love to come to the altar. The altar is the conscious mind. You want it to come to the surface so that you can see it and interact with it consciously. How about when I'm in conflict, I always breathe. When I'm in conflict, I always ask the Holy Spirit to take over my mind and do that which I don't know how to do for myself yet. When I'm in conflict, I always look for the highest guidance rather than following my old insanity and my old patterns. How about when I'm in conflict, I always communicate about what I want to create in my relationships. Rather than communicating around, why are you doing this to me? I communicate about my real feelings. Gee, I'm really feeling sad and fearful right now. And what I'd like to do is heal my sadness and my fear. Will you help? I'd really like to see us, when I'm in sadness and fear, able to create a really high, happy, holy relationship. And as we start to communicate about that in the middle of our conflict will start to dissipate and disappear.